Good afternoon, and welcome to the Carolina Codecast, the official podcast of the Carolina Code Conference. With me today is Olivia Evans. Say hello, Olivia.
Hey, Barry. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. So introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. Where you're from, what you're doing these days.
Yeah. So I grew up in the upstate and went on a little hiatus for a bit there, but have made it back this way over the last year. I work with Flywheel Coworking, which is a coworking space that originated out of North Carolina. I just moved back to Greenville about 3 weeks ago. I'm really happy to be back this way. And I'm getting people excited about our first co-working space that we're opening here. That's supposed to be opening July of 2024. So
Fantastic. Yeah. And so we discovered Flywheel because a sponsor of the 2023 Carolina Code Conference suggested that I go over to Tech Slam and Eggs last year, an event that y'all also put on. And while they were just kind of talking about the conference and our need for sponsors and what was going on and what we were trying to do with the first year of it, I got to meet Fred. And we had some follow-up conversations. And over time, after meeting Fred and you and Peter, that turned into the venue for the 2024 Carolina Code Conference. Mm-hmm. And we're very excited about that. You got to make an announcement at the end of the event this year. And so what's been your experience with, we'll start with that. I want to get into your background, and I want to cover a lot. I know we've got a lot to cover today, but go ahead and start with that. Like, what was it like making your sort of introduction to this community during the conference this year?
Yeah. So when I got to make the announcement, I wasn't even back in Greenville yet officially myself. So, I drove down from Winston Salem to be a part of the conference, but it was a ton of fun. I love being in Greenville, especially downtown. And it was awesome to get to see the community that was gathered. That was really one of my first big chances to network some, introduce, what was going on with Flywheel myself. Now, obviously, you mentioned you got to meet Fred. We've had a presence here in Greenville for years. We've been really excited about this project, have been working to get it open. And the beautiful site we're going to have it on is a historic site. And so that means the construction's been a little slower than we would like, but that also means that we're handling it with a lot of care, and we're really excited to open. So I was super pumped to come down and get to start spreading the word myself, and especially announce the fact that we would be hosting this conference. So it'll be the first big event we'll have at the Flywheel site. And something really unique about this Flywheel location is that we have an event space that is sizable enough to host something like this, right? And we're hoping to have many more opportunities to host groups like the Carolina Code Conference at our location, but we're really pleased that this will be the first. And it was super fun to hop up at the end of y'all's 2023 conference and make the announcement. It was funny. I was networking with people during the event. I even had a few people be like, it sounds like the space would be really cool for a conference. And Barry, you and I had talked at the beginning, like, don't tell anyone until the end. So I just had to play like I was like, yeah, that's a crazy idea. So it was fun to finally announce it at the end. So.
Yep. I was determined to have some type of big reveal at the end of the event. And so thanks for being patient on that.
Of course, I kept the secret.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you were from the upstate originally. So what part of the upstate were you from?
Yeah, so I grew up specifically in Boiling Springs, so the Spartanburg area. Okay. Was there my whole life. I ran a cross country and track, both in high school. And then that's what took me in large part to Anderson University, which is where I went to college. And I studied actually nursing my first 2 years, which didn't really pan out. Thank goodness, because I found my way into business. I studied and graduated with a marketing degree, and kind of finished that the last 2 years of college, and got some really great opportunities for internships, just still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to start my career. I interned with the Anderson Chamber of Commerce in Anderson, Anderson University, and fell in love with the work they were doing. It was kind of my first peek at what it looks like to work with small businesses, entrepreneurs. And I got my first kind of taste of that, of coming alongside people who were trying to build something in some way, some shape. And I absolutely loved it. So that's kind of what launched me into what then became the start of my career.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit about what a Chamber of Commerce does in general, because I know there are a lot of people who probably aren't as familiar with, I know we've all heard of it, but I've never really been that clear on exactly what the role of a Chamber of Commerce is and what the expectation is for how businesses work with it and how that relationship works.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would say from conversations I've had with other people who have worked at chambers and from my own personal experience, it takes shape in different ways in different cities, right? So you'll see chambers, depending on the size of the city, play a really big role in a lot of different areas, or maybe really strategically focus on one area. But the main focus of the chamber is to represent and support the businesses in that area. So it's a membership base, actually similar to how co-working spaces are operated, except instead of offering a space, you're offering the ability to network, attend events, have the representation of that chamber. And it's also really a way to support, because, chambers are nonprofits, so to support the work that they're doing. So a lot of that looks like at the city level, they're representing, and then there's a bigger chamber of commerce that's, has its own department up in DC that actually represents chambers as a whole, kind of across the nation. So again, if you look at like an Anderson Chamber of Commerce, it's super hands-on, working with everything from mom and pops all the way up to, the most influential business leaders in that city. And then what that looked like for me, I then started my career actually at the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. So much bigger city. And so that looked a lot different in terms of who that chamber was working with, who they were coming alongside, and how they were supporting a much bigger business, community as a whole. So, yeah.
Okay. So how in the world did you end up going from Anderson University to San Antonio?
Good question. So I was really tempted to graduate high school and go to a college elsewhere outside of the state, but it just made sense as I was looking at my running career and my education to stay in state. And so I told myself really at the beginning of college that, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to still kind of be in this hour radius that I've been in my whole life, then when I graduate, I want to go somewhere else. I kind of want to go see other parts of the world. And I really fell in love with traveling during college. And so that pushed me to do that even more. And so when I was interning with the Chamber of Commerce, that was right at the end of college. And I started talking to my boss there about the fact that I wanted to move. And she kindly offered she just said, send me your resume. Send me literally just a list of cities you would be interested in moving to, and I'll send your resume and a recommendation letter to the chambers of commerce in each of those cities, and we'll see if anything sticks. And ironically, I put Boston on the list. I put, Denver on the list. Like I was like anywhere. And I think I wound up throwing Dallas on the list because someone recommended it to me. And in a very passing by conversation, someone was like, well, what about San Antonio? That place is beautiful. And I was like, I've kind of never heard of that. What is it? And I Googled it. I saw one picture of the Riverwalk and I was like, yeah, that's pretty. And I threw it on the list. Of all of the ones, some of them are I've always wanted to move to Boston. I think San Antonio was the most random of them all. And then they had a job opening. And so I interviewed with a few places and just felt like the San Antonio opportunity was really unique. And so I graduated college and like flew out there the next week with my dad to find an apartment and then moved, a couple weeks later. But
Nice.
it was, I moved out there and started with the economic development and cybersecurity department at the chamber.
Okay.
A lot of fun and also a really great opportunity. I know I mentioned this in terms of benefits for members who join the chamber, but also it was a huge benefit for me because I got to network and meet
I
people in
bet.
San Antonio. So that was really cool.
That is really cool. Now,
Yeah.
that is an interesting department name: economic development and cybersecurity.
And it was on my
That's
business. Yeah, it was on my business card, and I was the I was assistant to either assistant to or assistant vice president. So I mean, it was literally assistant vice president of the Economic Development and Cybersecurity Chamber of the. It was the longest business title ever.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. I'm just trying to figure out how those two things work in an umbrella. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but it's an interesting combination. It kind of makes you wonder where that came from.
It is. And so the reason those two were kind of combined together, the cybersecurity department or the cybersecurity piece used to have its own department. What happened is those two departments just wound up being combined. But why cybersecurity? Well, it's because there's such a big military presence in
Oh,
San Antonio. There's so many bases there that was a really relevant industry. They had a huge cybersecurity conference out there that I got to represent the chamber at. And so we did a lot of initiatives specifically with cybersecurity. And so that's why that existed. It does seem really random, but when you start looking at San Antonio and what's there and who's there, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it does kind of sound random going in and looking at it.
I get it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your running career at Anderson, and so did you continue running in college?
I did. Yeah. I ran cross country and track kind of all the way through. I tapered off there at the end. I was always a high mileage person, but I think my body finally was like, you've been running for too long. And then I retired for a little bit. I wound up with a pretty bad back injury, actually. And then I've recently started getting back into it. So.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and she's thinking about starting cross country next year.
Okay.
Any advice for getting started in it?
It's for me, I want to say I started around the same age. It was so fun at the beginning. I would just say enjoy it when you're that young. Like, you start growing and your body starts changing and it kind of didn't feel as fun anymore. I mean, you adapt and you get used to it, but when you're young and like you're spry, it's like kind of like you could just, I don't know. I would just say enjoy it, honestly, and run in groups, like run with friends and stuff and just have fun with it. But it really is, it's a fun sport. The community is amazing. Like I always felt so blessed to have the team that I had, from high school throughout college. It's such a kind community. They're very, very welcoming, so supportive. So that was one of my favorite parts about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I was in high school, the cross country group I grew up in Florence, South Carolina, and went to West Florence High School. And I remember the cross country team was they seemed like a really tight group all around throughout the entirety of high school. And so that seems to be universal. That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So you went from Anderson to San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to working with Flywheel?
Yeah, good question. So I was out in San Antonio, and as I was networking and meeting people and this was also, this is relevant to what I'm about to say, but the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce is in downtown. It's a block away from the Alamo, which was really cool. I mean, I just like walked a couple feet, and the Alamo was right there, which was super cool.
Wow.
And then the Alamo kind of ties into Houston Street, and there was a co-working space on Houston Street that I went and visited one time called Geekdom. And it was started by a lot of people who were into tech, into coding, and into creating startups specifically around tech. And so they founded this co-working space about 10 years ago. And I just befriended some of the people who worked there and was fascinated just by the environment. It was really my first exposure to co-working myself. And while I loved my time at the Chamber of Commerce, I also, it was my first time in a new city on my own. And that's really daunting, to meet new friends and new people to spend time with and build community with. And I started to find that at the co-working space, and then they actually had a job opening for their marketing manager position, which is what I graduated with. And I, again, done some internships with it, so I had some experience. And one of the people I befriended actually asked me to apply for the job, which was a very quick jump. It felt like, from working with the chamber. I mean, I was only there for a little over a year, so I hadn't been with the chamber for a complete year yet when they asked me to apply. So I was hesitant too, but it was such a unique opportunity. And I applied and I got the job. And so then I kind of spent the remainder of my time in San Antonio with that co-working space and absolutely loved it. I mean, just fell in love. It was so fast paced. There were new people and new faces in the space every day. It was working with the startup founders. I mean, we did startup weekends. We put on social events all the time. We did a startup week. It was just so involved, and that became my community. That's, again, where I found all of my friends. And I kind of felt like I just lived out of the co-working space, and I absolutely loved it. I really, really did. And that's how I found my way into co-working. And so what happened though, is that I started to near the end of my lease, and I was like, okay, well, it's time to renew my lease. And I think it hit me around that time. I'd been flying home a lot to see my family.
Yeah.
And I realized I hadn't been really traveling. And I was like, every time I'm traveling, I'm going home to see my family. Maybe that's not how it's supposed to be. And I think I came to terms with the fact that I was a little homesick. And so I made the really hard decision to move back home, which I was really hesitant to do because, again, I loved my job. I felt like I was just like really feeling settled there, but I also just felt like it was time to come home. And so, again, I did wind up staying there a little over a year, but I moved back, continued to work for the co-working space for a time, just remotely as their marketing manager. But on my way back, I was, my dad flew out, and we drove, my car back with the U-Haul in the back, pulling it, and which is a long drive, by the way, I wouldn't recommend. And I was like, well, I was still working for the space, so I hadn't moved back to a new job. But he was driving, and I was like, I guess I should figure out what I'm going to do next. And I knew I wanted to stay in co-working. And so I Googled co-working in Greenville, and the very first thing that popped up was Crescent Startup Community. And I opened it and reached out to Fred, and we met for coffee soon after I got back. And it was just a start of a very casual conversation, but I kind of sat down and I was like, hey, this is the experience I have. I see you guys have a space here. I want to be y'all's community manager. I mean, I basically came and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is the experience I have. And he was like, that's great. I'm going to connect you with Peter, who's the founder of Flywheel, and Andrea, the COO, and you guys can talk. And I met with them, and they were great, and it was this great conversation. And then it was, the reality was I came to the table with interest, a year before it was really time to hire a community manager for the space. And so we were talking about me doing some, remote work. And this was over the course of 5 months. I kind of like took a hiatus and traveled the nation some and like did a road trip from San Diego to Portland, Oregon, and was kind of running all over the place with friends. It was a lot of fun. And meantime, like having this ongoing conversation with Flywheel about what does it look like for you to be a part of the Greenville project. And I think my mom said to me at one point, she said, I bet they're going to ask you to move to Winston-Salem. And I was like, no, they wouldn't do that. Like, that'd be crazy. I don't want to move to Winston-Salem. I'd just move back to Greenville, And sure enough, I met Peter at a Flywheel Cafe, which is another event we have in Greenville. And he was like, by the way, so we've been talking, and what if you move to Winston-Salem? And I was like, oh, okay. So I begrudgingly considered it and decided to say yes, just because I so badly wanted to be a part of the Greenville project. That I was like, it's worth the wait and it's worth the move and yet another adventure. And so I signed on for what was 10 months to be in Winston-Salem. And what I did during that time was work for our foundation, which is our, nonprofit arm of Flywheel. And so what that does is that's the arm that really strategically serves and works with entrepreneurs. So that's through offering programs. And that's looked like a lot of different programs over the years. We've run a few venture funds. We do a mentor program that I ran out of our Concord location, which is kind of a suburb of Charlotte. We also do a retail lab bootcamp, which is specifically for people who want to get into who are just getting started and want to get into the e-commerce kind of wholesale market. And so we do that twice a year. So that's what I was responsible for. So I was living in Winston-Salem, but kind of running our events mostly out of our Concord location and our programs out of our Concord location.
In Concord, that's where they have the big furniture market.
Yeah.
No, hold on. No, I'm not thinking Concord. It's
maybe. I said yeah, but I don't know.
There's an area in North Carolina where there's a huge retail market where every year people come in and most of the big furniture companies and everything do that to help stock all the various stores. And High Point is what I'm thinking of. High Point, North Carolina.
Okay.
You said Concord and I was thinking High Point. So sorry.
Okay.
Never mind.
Yeah. I think it's maybe is it in the same area, around that area?
I feel like it is close because there's a High Point University up there that's supposed to be real big. So when you mentioned just helping people get into e-commerce, I was just thinking if it was in that same area, it would have made a lot of sense. And but now I've got to look it up. I'm just have to look it up real quick because we have to answer this question. Our listeners are going to wonder. Let's see, Concord, North Carolina. Sorry, listeners, just bear with me. How close is that to High Point? That is a solid hour away, so probably not.
We tried. That's okay.
We did. All right. I had my wife briefly had an actual retail store for about 2.5 years, I guess it was. And she was a partner in it, and so we got to go through the process of kind of learning that whole retail e-commerce side of thing as well. And as part of it, we went and visited High Point, North Carolina at one point.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Very
anyway, back to you.
Yeah, you're good. That was a good. To the point of owning a store. So this actually happened very recently since I stepped away from working with the foundation. But we have, I think now, 3 or 4 stores that have opened with founders who were a part of that program, and they've all opened in downtown Concord in that area, which is so exciting to see. Nice. It's a guitar shop that opened, and that was one of the founders who was in our one of the very first boot camps we ran. Candle shop / candle making shop / like luxury, women's luxury kind of like spa kind of stuff. And that was, her name's Bria Smith. She was in the boot camp that I put on while I was there. And then another one that's a wine tasting. What's the word? It starts with an S. Soiree?
Sommelier?
Yeah, that. Sorry. That one. So those 3 have opened in Concord. And all of those people have been a part of the boot camp. So it's really, really cool to see. It's really exciting.
Nice. So, I didn't even know there was something like an e-commerce boot camp option. That's kind of cool. I bet there's a lot to be learned through an event like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy. It really, really is. Yeah. And so then those founders, a lot of them graduated and went into our mentor program, which is the mentor program that MIT kind of produced several years ago.
Okay.
Venture mentoring services. And that's like a really structured, really, really well-designed mentor program where 3 mentors are assigned to one founder to help them work through, all of the ups and downs of building a business. And it's really, really cool. It's very, it was designed to support founders, right? When you see a lot of mentorship, it's like, as a mentor, I'm also going to be an investor and pull you in this direction or pull you in that direction. But it's very much so designed to both support and protect the founder during the startup process. So it's really, really cool. So anyway.
That's good to have a structure for that because, starting anything, it can be a lonely road.
It can, yeah.
Because, you're never quite sure who you can go to for advice. And nobody ever knows if you're trying to sell them and that's why you're trying to get the conversation going, or if somebody's going to be looking to invest and they're just trying to steer this a certain way, or what perspective people are seeing things from. It's a challenge. So I'm sure that has a major impact on the success rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are y'all going to be doing anything like the retail e-commerce bootcamp stuff in the Greenville area?
We're hoping to, yeah. I am kind of scoping out right now just to see how we can best serve this ecosystem, right? There's so many amazing entrepreneurial service organizations doing really, really incredible things here. And we want to come along and support those where we can, but also provide programs that we have kicked off ourselves and have found that have been really impactful. And so we're hoping to put that on, but it'll just kind of depend on, what we see in terms of needs from founders and then also what support we can get from other organizations. So yeah, we're really excited though. Whatever that looks like, it'll be hopefully very impactful. So yeah.
Okay, nice. And so you're going to be doing all of this at your brand new building.
Yeah.
Your brand new historic building.
Mm-hmm. Our brand new historic Pepsi Cola factory, ex-Pepsi Cola factory building. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an area that, I know we touched on it briefly during the conference, but for the people who weren't there, y'all are turning the Pepsi plant that was here in town, which was really critical to the local economy for many, many years, into a startup ecosystem. And so talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. It's a really, really cool story to tell. And it's that, the Hartness development, which is the development group that owns the building and is the one putting on this project, ran the Pepsi factory for years. And, it since then shut down, but the site was still there, and Hartness Development had been looking for some time to see and determine what was the best thing to do with the building, right? And this idea of an innovation district or a startup community kind of sparked interest on Hartness's side, and we got pulled along into the project. And so what it'll look like is the building's actually kind of in this really cool L shape. So there's a little jut off here, but Flywheel will be occupying 27,000 square feet of it, I believe is the number. And then there will be bigger tenants on the other side, and there's a gym in the facility. There's actually this really, really big pavilion that almost runs the entire span of the building that's kind of across the courtyard we'll have. And so we're going to be doing fun events out of there. Lots of fun activities, I'm hoping, kind of at different times of the day. We're going to be doing what we're calling like a food truck rodeo. So the space is designed to where you can have food trucks come in and park and people can grab food and hang out in the open space. So there's lots of different fun things. Just the space itself is really unique, and we always like to lean into that and see how we can use it creatively and also to curate community. And so we'll be putting on events in the event space, events in the conference center, and then again, a little over half of the building is going to be occupied by Flywheel. So that's going to be where the co-working space is, and the kind of common area. We have 40 private offices out of there.
Wow.
So there's a lot of space for people to come, set up shop and have their own private office and then still be a part of that bigger community, right? We're going to be offering reserved desks. And so again, that's an opportunity where you do have your own space. You're a little more exposed to the people around you, but some people love that, to kind of have your own designated spot and still be surrounded by others. And then of course, we'll have those different membership levels for people who just want to come in and be a part of the community and grab a seat, whatever is open. So yeah, we're excited about it all. And the building is taking shape. It's got a lot of character, which is really, really cool to see. Just it tells a story. The whole building does, right? And we want to incorporate the story of the fact that it did used to be this Pepsi factory, and that in and of itself was innovation. Just to have the factory there and then building and developing new products and new formulas. I don't know if that's the right word, but like formulas for the Pepsi.
Yeah.
And then we get to turn it into something new, but it's still that idea of innovation, right? So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely. So that's there's certainly a lot going on there. When it comes to the layout of the space, it's going to be a unique setup for a conference space, because it's sort of spread wide in the way that we're going to be fitting everybody in for this. But I think it creates a really interesting opportunity, because there's a blend of how it sets up with screens and a wide space and kind of a unique feel for it, where people are very close to being able to just go walk around outside if they just need to get some air, take a break. Will you be doing any type of like tours during the event? Or we haven't talked about this at all, but I didn't know if it was, will I be able to direct people who want to get a tour of the facility?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys will be right there, right outside of our doors. So the way the space is set up, to what you're saying, is you'll walk into this beautiful atrium. We'll have garage doors on either side. So you'll have the event space to your right and our co-working space to your left. And so absolutely, we'll have to set up some tours. And I mean, we have a open door policy. Anytime anyone wants to come in and take a tour, they can. We love having people just show up, be like, hey, I was looking into co-working, right? And so we're excited about that once the space opens. But yeah, we will certainly, I'm sure we'll be given tours off and on throughout the span of the conference. And we'll have to set something more formal up, especially with the numbers you guys are expecting, which we're
definitely
excited about. So yeah.
Yeah, y'all are going to be bursting at the seams in the best way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, I know the last time I was out there was kind of middle of the fall, and it was a lot of cement and open walls and construction happening.
And dirt.
And so I know we talked earlier, I need to get out there and kind of get a construction update. But where are things sitting right now? I know we're recording this around mid-February right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I moved back on a Wednesday, and Thursday morning, Peter made his way down this way, and we went and walked around the space, and I had seen it several months before. So cool to see where we are now. So there's walls now, which is huge. So you can kind of see the shape that the space is going to take, or, the internal walls. And so it's, we've got the drywall up. They're working on wiring, getting all of that set up, whether it's sound system, or we actually have a sound masking system so that when you're out in the co-working space, there's kind of this, you aren't getting drowned out by everyone who's working around you. And yeah, everything's taking shape in terms of walls, specifically drywall, structure. You can walk around and see the private offices now. You can see the phone booths. And so all of that is set up, and they're working on painting everything. And then they'll start kind of moving in other pieces of the project. Yeah. So it's before I was like, yeah, this looks good. I could maybe kind of see where we're going with this. And now it's like, oh yeah, like this is where the desk is going to be, and this is where the kitchen's going to be, and the social commons, and this is where people will gather. And this, like, it's so cool to finally see it take shape. And something that we'll be doing so that other people can see it take shape is actually offer open houses. So actually the first one is in, what's today, the 19th? The first one is February 28th. So that's our very first sneak peek that we'll be giving the Greenville community of what we've been working on, which we're really, really excited about. And then we will
will have already happened by the time this runs.
Yes, it will have already happened, but it will. February 28th was then the sneak peek. And then we'll be offering ongoing ones depending on when this was released. The March open house may just be creeping up, or we may have just skirted past it. I guess we'll have to see.
Okay.
But yeah, so it'll be the fourth Wednesday of every month leading up to our opening in July.
So that'll be March 27th and April 24th.
Yes, that is right. Those will be the next two. So we're excited about that.
Nice. And so that those clearly aren't the only events that y'all have going on in the area. I know you've had. I just started hearing about Tech Slam and Eggs last year whenever I got to go and talk about the conference there. Mm-hmm. But so that is still going on. When's the next Tech Slam and Eggs event, and how often do those happen?
Yeah, so that'll be, the next one is going to be April 3rd, and that'll be in the Greenville 101 Center, which is where we've been putting on all of our events, or the Furman 101 Center in the Greenville 101 Center within that. That's where we've been putting on all of our events while we, don't have a space ourselves to host. And so there'll be one on April 3rd. And then I'm actually not sure if we'll have another Tech Slam before then, but we did just decide that we will be having a Flywheel Cafe, which is a really big event that we have put on in this area. We're going to be having one of those in April. So we're really excited about that. It's much more just networking, right? So if you look at Tech Slam, and you've been at one, so you know this, you've been to one, so you know this, Barry, but Tech Slam and Eggs, which is like the quirkiest name in the world. I love it. Everyone was just like, the egg event? Like, what is that one again? But that event is specifically for coders and developers to gather together to pop the hood on their projects, on what they're working on, whether that's job related or personal projects, and just talk about it, share ideas, and it's an opportunity for people to gather and get to know each other, and maybe for someone like Barry to connect with us and then host a conference at our location. It'll come out of it. But yeah, so that's Tech Slam and Eggs, and then Flywheel Cafe is our big networking event. So that's a time for anybody in the Greenville community who's interested in Flywheel and what we're doing to just gather together and network with other like-minded entrepreneurs, and or really anybody who's interested in our community, and hang out and drink some beer. So yeah, those two will be coming up. And then again, the open houses are the big ones that we're really excited about. So
nice. So with the there's clearly a lot going on here. Mm-hmm. With it now, is the ecosystem of startup ventures also called Flywheel, or does that have a different name?
Of startup ventures.
Of the various startup, you mentioned, the boot camps and all. Is that all under the Flywheel brand?
It's all under our Flywheel Foundation. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Flywheel Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Mm-hmm. All right. So how long has Flywheel been around outside of this area?
Yeah, good question. So we were founded, and I'm not going to be able to say the year, but I know we just celebrated, I think, what was our 9th anniversary. So we're going into our 10th year, as having been founded. And yeah, so we've been around for that long. We started out of Winston Salem, And that was kind of an exploration of just what does it look like to have a co-working space? Like, what does this mean? Are people even going to understand and come work out of here, right? So it definitely began. Our founder, Peter Marsh, and he actually started it because he owns another company, Workplace Architect and Design, and they were asked to design a co-working space. And they kind of started exploring the idea behind it and became so fascinated with co-working that they decided to open their own. And so they opened it. Andrea Howell, who's now our COO, was originally our community manager. So she worked my role. And then she kind of shifted as the company began to grow. Obviously, Concord is our second location that we founded under the Flywheel brand, but we have worked with other cities actually to open affiliate locations. And so that's us partnering with cities to help them develop their entrepreneurial organization co-working space, right? That center, that hub where people can come and gather and work together and help start companies together. And the purpose of it is to further the economic development of that city. That was the idea behind Flywheel in the start. When we started in Winston-Salem, it was the same idea in every affiliate location we went into, and also any locations, directly under the Flywheel umbrella. And so that was the vision behind it. And what that looks like, what our kind of mission statement is that Flywheel curates their community to the cities they're going into with the deliverables of providing positive impact wherever they're going, right? So that's kind of the mission behind what we're doing. And so that's showing both that co-working piece, but also the foundation piece where we're then going in and fostering entrepreneurship, coming alongside founders who are already there. So
now, what would you say is the role that you've seen coders play in that experience in these different cities?
Yeah, great question. I would say coders are one of our foundational kind of membership profiles that you see, truthfully. And that's for a handful of reasons. I think the big one is that when you look at entrepreneurship, right, and there's a lot of stereotypes of what entrepreneurship can be. And it can be a small business. It can be someone who's doing a lifestyle brand or something, but you also see these companies, and regardless of what place they're in, whether they're a tech startup and it's this big flashy, we want to grow and do this and do that, or if they're a lifestyle brand or a mom and pop or something, at some point along the way, they're going to need those resources to potentially develop out some portion of what they're doing, right? And so we love the idea of having people who are coders, who are developers, who are builders being a part of our space for that reason, so that we can say, well, here are members who know this, who are doing this, who are active in this industry. But another piece is that it's a member profile, so to speak, that we have constantly seen just utilize our space and be really impactful, just wonderful members. Some of I kind of skipped over this part of my Winston-Salem hiatus, but I actually got to work as a community manager there for 4 months after kind of my term under the foundation. I shifted as interim community manager before I moved back. And some of our long members there were coders, were people who were in that world. And it's co-working is very unique. And I think it very much so fits the model of who coders are, what environment they want to be in. I've seen that across all co-working spaces I've been in. I think a lot of it has to do with just that it's not that super stuffy corporate. Like it is a community. You can gather together with people, and it's a unique community, and we've loved seeing the coder community be a part of that across our locations. So,
all right. Now, I can't remember if you touched on this earlier with Deck Slime and Eggs, but I think, did you say that it's a quarterly event?
Tech Slam and Eggs?
Yes.
Yes, it is quarterly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we got that in before I completely moved on
Yes.
from it.
Yeah. And so we'll
All right.
have the one in April, but I think the way the timeline works out, it'd be pretty close to opening for us to have another one. So don't hold me to the fact that we're going to be, it may not exactly replicate quarterly here in Greenville, just as we're creeping
I
up to
understand.
opening. We may focus on operations and then open and then host another one. So we'll see.
Yep. Makes complete sense. Complete sense. So, you just recently got moved back to the Greenville area. Is it nice finally being back?
It is. Yeah, it's really, really nice. I'm happy to be back. And I've always loved Greenville, but it kind of hit me, I think, as I was looking to move back. I'd been dying to move back to Greenville for so long, and then I realized I'd never actually lived truthfully in Greenville until I moved back three weeks ago. I mean, I was in Spartanburg and then I was in Anderson. So I'm excited to be like a working adult, having so many friends, having such a great community here, and actually be in Greenville. So I'm very, very excited about it. Yeah.
And so as the community manager at Flywheel in Greenville, once that opens, what will that role look like for you? What will your interaction be with the community? And I know, what will your part be in these various events and everything that y'all are doing? I mean, it sounds like you're going to be very busy.
Yes, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like I said, I got to work the role in Winston Salem, so I got a peek at what it would be like. And the Flywheel structure, Peter and Andrea always say that the community managers are our secret sauce. So, I mean, I will be the person running the location. I mean, I will be in charge of the Greenville Flywheel Coworking location. And so it entails like everything you could think of. I mean, it's like make sure the dishwasher is empty and then also engage with the community, put on the networking events, make sure you've got coffee cups and coffee going. And also, I'm constantly going to be trying to grow the membership base, grow awareness that Flywheel is here, maintain all memberships that we actively have going on, help put on huge events that are going on in the space. So it's very all-encompassing. Nothing has been both as challenging, but also beneficial in helping me grow and learn more about myself, how to manage people. I'll have interns coming in and working with me. And because the facility is so big, we'll actually have a facility manager kind of coming in to play that role as well. But yeah, it's an incredible role. It's so involved in everything you're doing. At any given moment, someone could come up and be talking to you, and you're constantly engaging with people and connecting people with one another. And so, yeah, it's all encompassing is the short answer. I'm really excited for it. I know it's going to be a challenge, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So.
All right. Yeah. You're going to be ever present around here. It sounds like for quite a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. All right. And so everything is slated it's officially going to open in July, you said?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we're having our conference in August. So
I know.
Just got to make sure you're open in time.
Yeah. We know. We've told them. Yeah. So July is super set, and we're excited about it. And we'll obviously be making sure we're ready for you guys when you get here. So yeah, we're super excited.
Fantastic. Now, I think we have gone through just about everything that you and I talked about talking about. Is there anything else you'd like to add or discuss while we got you?
I don't think so. No.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. Let me give my weekly shout out. Thank you to Herd Media for helping me get this podcast off the ground. If you're looking to have a podcast produced or edited, and or you're just looking for advice, contact Herd Media at Trust Herd. This has been the Carolina Codecast.